Irene, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. I know you're friends with our recent guest, Victoria, but we'd love to hear more about your story.
Thank you. I got to know Victoria through another friend who is in the art world, and my friend Vivian Phillips said, you should meet Tori. And then Tori, I met her, and then she said, you should meet Tony. So again, it's all these 6 degrees of separation. But I invited Tori to my house and my studio, and she saw my artwork. My intention was she has beautiful designs. I have art. Perhaps we can marry the two.
Yeah.
The fabric in that. But just to go back a little bit further for my art journey, as I mentioned, I did not envision myself as being an artist. In the family, I was not the artistic one. And you'll hear people...
What were you?
I think I was the good girl. I was the one that would clean and stay home and do that. My sister was more of a rebel. And, I was the nervous one that stayed home, did schoolwork, etc. So I tried art, as we all do in elementary school, and I had a teacher that didn't give good feedback.
Yeah.
And so as kids, you are so... you can be formed by the negative comments by people. And that's why it's really important to look at that. But people have said, you've always been artistic, Irene. You do flowers. When you gift wrap something, when you work with Japanese paper and you create cards and journals. But I never thought of myself as artistic.
And this is when you were in your teens, or?
This was actually...
20s?
Yes. Younger. I would say it's in my 20s. Where flowers would give me a lot of comfort. I got my little homage to my flowers. Yeah. Color. I do remember when I was little, I said I want to work at a Hallmark store because I wanted to be a professional gift wrapper. I mean, who grows up wanting to think that? But I think it was like 10. And then I got into the world of retail. Yeah. So for about 17 years, I did work in retail.
Where at?
Nordstrom was one, and the other ones were smaller boutique stores in Bellevue. But I worked at Nordstrom for 10 years. Great foundation. 1 year on the sales floor and 9 years in HR.
HR. So what was that like working in HR in a fashion company?
So I
call them a fashion company because...
That's true. That's true.
Yes, they sell clothes, but they sell nice ones.
Yes, they do. And it's experience. My dad was actually in HR, and in the military, they called it human relations. And at Nordstrom, they would have a committee, a human resource committee, and you can be a representative. And I represented Bellevue. And I got paid $100 a month stipend, and I thought, wow, that's pretty good back in, the
to
80s.
Buy clothes?
Of course.
So you could only spend it at Nordstrom.
So
do they know that their clothes cost more than $100?
Oh, yeah, they do. Absolutely. And there's a whole different story in terms of that one. But I was a representative for about a year, and then a position opened up for human resource assistant. And I looked at the job description. I thought, I can get paid to do that. And so I applied, and I got the position. I was the assistant for about a year and a half, led the human resource committee, and then the position opened up for HR director. So then I got the Washington, Alaska region.
Okay.
And how was that back in the late 80s, early 90s? I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on. You remember AIDS was still going on in terms of that. People with disabilities, 1994, the People with Disabilities Act came through. And so you look back, and things were just such groundbreaking moments in time and history. And now we take that for granted, right? There's still a lot of work to do. Trust me. Yeah. I'm a woman of color. There's still a lot of work to do. But what was it like back then to be with a company that led the way in so many different formats, whether it was how they listened to the customer, how they had beautiful clothing. In one of your podcasts, I heard you mention Brunello Cucinelli, and I thought, Tony's my type of guy. So the high end there also meant that they looked for high caliber people with integrity. Now, the Nordstrom family, beautiful people with beautiful hearts. They really put their money where their mouth was. So to be the first group, I was the third person in HR hired in that division, and to be able to go into the community, and community is really important for me, and to make the impact. A lot of companies will write a check, say, here's your money, that's it. Volunteered, sat on boards, did AIDS walk, did fundraising, worked with the community. That was important to me.
Yeah.
So,
and Nordstrom was a perfect vehicle.
It was a perfect vehicle. It was the right size. And then I left and I went to tech. I went to Microsoft. Then I went to Real Networks. And then I also went to a bank who's no longer there.
Yeah.
And then more entertainment. My last one was at Pokemon. That was my last job.
Pokemon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here in Bellevue as well. So to have the mixture of retail, Nike was a small stint too in Beaverton. It's been great because there's HR in every company.
Yeah, and you get to see like the different cultures between going from tech. What was that like?
Tech was
from retail to tech.
It was. I had a little jump in between, so I was with Nike Sports and Fitness for a little bit before I went to Microsoft, and I would think, Irene, you're not an athlete, so will Nike hire you if you don't run and you don't work out? But again, a wonderful culture about team and collaboration and innovation and just doing it.
Right. So from high heels to sneakers at the office.
Exactly, right. And just going in there and it's, what is the culture? How can I help with that culture? And then going from there to Microsoft. Microsoft was a big change because it was technology. And this was, in the late 80s. It was 2000, actually. That's a long time ago. And there weren't a lot of women. So in my building, I think there were 5 women. And most of them were the network engineers. These were the people who ran the facilities, the whole campus. But you'd walk in and people would say good morning and then go into their offices and close doors. There wasn't the open office concept that we see here. So breaking down those barriers too is like, who is this HR lady that comes from Nike and Nordstrom? What does she know about tech? But I'll tell you, working with the tech people, some of the hardest working, smart people, and with a little funny sense of humor, which I like. I like a little strange. I like a little quirky. And so to be there, I had network engineers say, okay, here's a book on routers and hubs, right? So they're trying to help me.
Trying to educate them. Yeah.
So I really enjoy that time. And I still have people that I know at Microsoft. Up until recently, I had one general manager that said, Irene, when are you going to come back? It's like, it's been over 25 years. I don't think I'm coming back, right? Yeah. But just to know that you made that
still
impact.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially now they have the DEI, whereas probably back when you were at Microsoft, that wasn't even a thing.
It was not a thing, but everything is, the diversity, equity, inclusion. And as I said, there's still a lot of work to do.
Why is there a lot of work?
I think when we came from the Philippines, I was 3. So both my mom and dad are Filipino. My dad started off as a steward in the Navy. So he learned how to cook, and then he went into storekeeping, supplies, and then human relations. And to your point in your question is times do change, but sometimes there is a resurgence of people feeling like I feel that now is what's happening. Where are my rights? Is something missing out in the pie? And that's why people fight to hold on to past or maybe threatened with something they don't understand or they don't know. I was telling my husband back then, gay and lesbian, LGBTQI+, that was a big thing back then. People understand that. You see it in advertising. There's welcoming, embracing. Now it's transgender, right? People are looking at that. And you are looking at people who are on the margins of society in terms of protection, in terms of still getting the discrimination, overt discrimination, safety. Yeah. So there is always something, and we are all human beings. So what can we do in terms of opening up and embracing and knowing that we are one? We are really one. Yeah. So anytime something new comes in, I think it can be very threatening to some people who are not comfortable. Yeah. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah. So how did you find yourself doing art full time? Did you just retire from the corporate world?
I did.
What was that transition like?
It was COVID. I mean, I've done HR for 33 years, and people would say, well, you're not like most HR people. It's like, I'm not, because I want to get to know, I want to do what's right. But sometimes that means telling the company or the corporation that, hey, this is problematic. I'm not hired to be a yes person, right? I am hired to work with people as well. And I love the aspect of being able to guide and coach and mentor and also to strengthen people, give them the tools so that they can fish instead of me
So
fishing.
what's an example? Because me personally, I'm still not clear on
what I do for HR.
What HR is and what they do for a company. All I hear is layoffs happen first in marketing and then HR. And everybody else, it's hit or miss.
I'll share my most recent one. If I can affect a culture, right? So yes, there is the hiring. People know that hiring, firing, what have you. But building the culture that you can see, like with Nordstrom, I'll go back to my roots. To be able to win the Governor's Award in the late 90s for including people with disabilities, the first fashion retailer to have people with disabilities in print ad, in the runway, all of that. That wasn't heard of before. When I was growing up, people had the perfect hair, the perfect whatever, usually didn't look like me, right? So that's what the advertising was. Now you see so much in advertising where there's real people.
Yeah, I think Victoria's Secret did a 180.
They did, totally. Instead of just those skinny models that had a certain thing. There's this company called Wild Fang, and I wear a lot of overalls. And they're very, very inclusive. So you look at their models, they're both men and women there. And that's not unusual, but you'll see men with makeup, men wearing some of the dresses or the skirts that the women are wearing, women that are wearing the jackets and the overalls. But what I liked about Wild Fang is they open their products to the world. They don't judge. They just said, hey, we're here for you. Great quality.
And then you brought that to Nordstrom.
Yeah, this is Wild Fang was just in the last 5 years. But back then, I think Nordstrom was a precursor to that, stating that we want to welcome the community. And in the past, people have said, let me write you a check. We can serve on your board or what have you. What we did back then in other companies that I've been in is actually be part of the community, participate, get to know people, talk to leaders, volunteer. And you talk about interviewing, hiring. Go there and show your skills. Mentor some of the kids there. Mentor some of the women that are coming out of being at home and coming in. People who have fallen on some hard times and are looking for, how do I step back into the work world? So in every single company that I've worked for, there was that element of how do we take a look at who's our community and how do we include, involve, reach out. It's not enough just to sit there and say, oh, some people will come and apply. If you look at a company, whether it's their board or their executive rank or management rank, if you don't see yourself, why would I say I can work in that company? Going back to your Victoria's Secrets model. Why would someone, a person of color or different size, say, I can be a Victoria's Secrets model if they don't see themselves there? So more than hiring and firing is helping with the culture. One of the last buildings that I helped in terms of our team to build and to design had mother's rooms. When I was a mom, I remember being at a bank and having to find a place. There were no mother's room. My son's 22 now. And I was pumping. I was still nursing. I found a abandoned supply area where I sat behind a desk, a file cabinet. And that's how I pumped, because I wanted to make sure that my son still had the nourishment he needed, because I went back to work at 3 months when he was 3 months old. So now you'll see a multi-faith room in companies. You'll see the mother's room. You'll see the beautiful amenities like we see when we walked in here, where people can converge. People were doing meditation when I left in different places. So it's about having a place where you feel connected to the people that you spend 8+ hours a day with. And that was before COVID. Now people are doing hybrid work, etc. But it does go beyond that. Is there pay equity? Do we take a look at, are we being competitive with the market? And if so, and what are the values of what the company is? How do you take the values of the company and translate that so employees and management and community all feel connected? So hopefully that helps
it's like
a little
team
bit.
Coach, if you will.
And there's some of the hard conversations where you sit with executives and you say, hey, let me bring some feedback to you. Because sometimes people think, okay, if you're in this level, I can do and say what I want to do. One story I will tell you, I won't name I won't name the company. It has a good ending. But I remember one of our people in HR doing a new hire employee orientation. 30 people in the room. It was a tech company. And she had the room, and I would guess she was 22 years old. She was, just new into, and so we said, you can handle this. I'll come in and I'll greet the people, and then you can take over and run with it as you normally do. Fantastic. We had one of the senior vice presidents open the door and said, I have this room. And, my HR assistant was like kind of shaking in her boots. And she looked at me, she said, I booked the room, Irene. I said, that's fine. So I said to SVP, we have a room. You've got 5 people. Can you find another room? And he said, fine. And he closed the door. And so I sat there with her, stayed for a little bit longer, made sure the employees, all 30 of them knew with, big eyes, looking at the first SVP coming in, trying to say, this is my room.
Yeah.
That's not a great way to start.
Right.
So afterwards, I said, you did fine. You did great. You did everything you should have. You booked the room. Thank you for having grace under pressure, etc.
Yeah.
Then I went to go find the SVP. And I said, that was very difficult to hear. Here I am welcoming new people, 30 new people to our company. And by the way, one of those new people is in your division. And you come in and you do that, not respectful at all.
Yeah.
Not like, hey, Irene, can I see you in the hallway? And I said, that was not cool. And I said, I'm talking the HR assistant down. I'm smoothing it out for the group of 30 people.
Yeah.
And he said, you're right. I'm sorry. And he said it with a lot of heart. And so we had that dialogue. My job is not to beat someone on the head.
Right.
You do not build partnerships that way.
Yeah. And then those 30 employees could be like, I'm going to start looking for another job.
Yeah. That's your first answer. We're talking about your culture. But I can tell you, I've gone to lunch with that SVP. After I left that company, we kept in contact. But again, it's, what is that? How do I help someone to realize that they may be stepping off point, right? And some people are very intimidated by titles and by position. We're all working together for the common good, right?
Yeah.
Let's build that culture where you can feel that interaction.
Right.
And I love that.
No, that's awesome, because you don't see that. You don't hear about those kind of stories.
Yeah, I thought I'd give you that instead of hiring and firing. I've got those stories too. I don't think. Yeah.
See, it's happening even faster now.
Yeah, it is. Very, very interesting. Anyway, does that help you understand a little bit about HR?
Yeah,
Okay.
Certainly.
Yeah, I got more to tell you. We can talk later.
But we want to hear about how you got into art, right? So COVID's happening.
COVID is happening.
You're like, I'm done with corporate.
It was hard. I would say it was hard during COVID because we've never seen a pandemic. We've never seen anything on that scale worldwide. And so what we did as an executive team is we met every single day at 8:30.
Wow.
And we checked in with London office to see how London was doing. There's people in other parts of the United States, but Bellevue was the main place. And so every day at 8:30, we would meet and we talk. And it would change. Yes, there's an outbreak in this building, in one of the Bellevue buildings. So we're going to, what do we do with that? Someone went on a trip and, now they're sick. How do you handle that? And with all of my companies, I'd say all of them, they believed in butts and seats. They did not believe expressly in remote work. COVID changed all of that. So now you hear hybrid work schedules, you hear remote work from home. But back then, everybody came into the office, every single person. So that went on, and I'm really proud of what happened with the team. I had facilities, I had benefits, recruiting, employee relations, etc. So those are the touch points for people. And during a time of crisis, you look at leadership, and you look at your people who can help you, and working hand in hand with the executive team, employees, and the HR team, facilities team, made it work so that people felt really cared for.
And connected.
And there was a foresight from the tech team to get Zoom ahead of time. So when you look at that, that was all before the pandemic, like 3 months before the pandemic hit, right?
So why didn't everyone use GoToMeeting if that was already in the market?
And that would be a question for the tech. So I'm not sure.
But somehow Zoom just like boom.
Just boom. It
Yeah.
just did that. I remember doing a Zoom meeting for all company meeting, 600 people. Right?
Mhm.
Shoot, back in the day, if you had a conference call with 5 people, that was pretty big. But
600 people on a platform.
Yeah, to do that, it was amazing, and to do things to let people know that they were cared for. So here's an X amount stipend to get your home kitted out. Right? People were working in a closet, or they had to stack up, their milk crates to put their laptop. So doing things to make the home accessible, so that we cared about them. So
was it $100 for most people?
It was 1,000.
It was 1,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's enough.
Proud.
That's enough to
buy a monitor. Do this. You need to get better wiring in your home. See what you can do with that. And people were still taking care of their kids at home, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, my kid
was already. Yeah.
And my husband too. He was impacted because he does shiatsu work, so. He couldn't go to work. Businesses were shut down, right? So
his business was just...
He stayed home from March until September.
Wow.
And when you do the work that he does, such as touching people and help, that was at that time, no, you've got to keep your 6 feet, right?
Yeah, so how do you even run your business if you can't?
He didn't. So... but what I appreciated about him is I'd be on that call, and sometimes I'd have calls at 7:30, and the door in our home office would open, and a plate would slide over. Here's your breakfast, and then at noon, because we were on calls constantly, and then at noon the door would open, and here's your lunch. And God bless him, I so appreciated him. And then I'd have my break. I'd walk around the garden. We have a beautiful, beautiful garden where it's like a little sanctuary. My art studio's back there. But anyway. That's what was happening with the pandemic. And in September, here's how the universe works so well. King County opened up so Stan could start doing his shiatsu work. And that's when I left. I said, okay. And when I left, I slept for 3 months.
Wow.
And I was tired. And so my husband said, okay, take a breather, do what you need to do. Now, I've been working since I was 12 years old, not illegally, right? I had a paper route, I babysat, I did things. But once I was able to work after 16, I've worked, I worked through college.
Yeah.
I worked 30 hours while I went to college full time. And that's just I did not come from a wealthy family where someone could write me a check to go to college. I'm very grateful for what my parents could do. And then I supplemented it with my work. But the 3 months where I took to sleep and to rest was just delicious.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what that felt like. I think part of it is...
Did you get regular massages?
No, I don't like massage.
Oh, okay.
When Stan was going to get his certification, I lined up 20 of my friends.
Okay.
Here's all your people. I let him work on me once because he needed the experience. I'm not into that, but Stan does shiatsu, which is actually a little bit more rigorous, like Rolfing. He's moving the energy, moving all the kinks in your body. So it's not like the spa where I've got the cucumber slices. Yeah. When you go there, it's 30 minutes. It's intense. But when he would work on me, I like his body work. I would feel like I'm 5'6" instead of 5'2". I would feel like butter. I would feel so fluid and so strong. So he's been so busy. I was like, he can work like 10 minutes on me, right? So no, I did not have the massages. I slept a lot. I worked in my garden. I reconnected with I listened to what I needed to do to recalibrate myself. 33 years in HR means taking care of other people.
So it's time to take care of you.
It was time for me. And I come from a culture where it's family, you do this, and you don't really look at yourself. One of the biggest learnings that I've had over these past couple of months when I had my bout with pneumonia in my hospital stay is it's time for you, Irene. And unless you are healthy and in a good space, how can you give love and attention to other people when you are working on an empty cup? So that was my big takeaway. So after I slept for 3 months, I actually went to the hospital. I thought it was January, and I was waking up in the morning. My husband was in our master bathroom, and I went down the hall to my son's bathroom, and I woke up and my knees buckled and I was on the floor, and I thought, my God, this is COVID. this is it.
Yeah.
But I still had to go to the bathroom. So I got up and I went down the hall, and my husband was in our bathroom, and he heard the with my hands going across the wall to get to the other bathroom. And then he heard he heard something.
Thump.
Yep. And he came and he said, I was just not coherent at all. And so he said, we got to call the ambulance. This is this is January 2021. I'm laughing now because my husband, he's such a worrywart and he loves me. God bless him. But he said, we got to go to the hospital. I said, no. I said, get me to the bed. And I said, call Esther. And Esther's our spiritual life coach. And he said, what? I said, just call her. And she's on the East Coast. So we called. And she said, okay. She talked to me. I said, I'm fine. I just, I painted till 3. I was drawing till 3 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And this is the true story. Esther would say, when you're drawing, Irene, ask your paintings and drawings what they want to tell you. So my tip of the day is don't do that till 3 o'clock in the morning. I was drawing portals and vortex. And so there's a lot of movement. So before I went to bed at 3, I asked them, what are you trying to tell me? I think there's just a lot of energy. And when I woke up at 6, 3 hours later, that energy was still there.
Yeah.
So as I talked to Esther, this can sound a little woo-woo to other people. Mm-hmm. But when you realize I've never painted before and this is coming through, she said there was just a lot of energy you couldn't contain. Mm-hmm. So she said to Stan, take her to the ER, check her out. And that was for his sake, not for my sake. Mm-hmm. So we did that. And again, this was during COVID, so he couldn't come in with me. So we drove there to Overlake Hospital. He could just drop me off. He couldn't even come in the waiting room.
Wow.
And so they said, it's going to be a while, so we'll call you. We've got your number. And so I went into that, and Esther was telling Stan, tell her not to bring any of her artwork. But I got in right away. And how unusual is that to get into the ER and get in right away? Mm-hmm. Usually there's a waiting period.
1 hour wait, maybe.
And Stan said to Esther on the phone, she's not going to bring her art supplies with her into the ER. I did. Yeah. I had my bag with my pens and I had a little sketchbook. And I would have been drawing if I was waiting for 2 or 3 hours. Uh-huh. But Esther intuitively knew not to draw, because let that energy dissipate. Yeah. They found that there was really nothing wrong with me. They say it might be fatigue or what have you, but to me it was a surge. And they talked about the vagus nerve, like if people get a shock or bad news, then people will faint. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first time that I fainted. That was the first time that the black started to come into my vision tunnel. And what I realized there in January 2021 is that this is something beyond me. Mm-hmm. Now, I have gone on sacred travel, went to Egypt with a group of folks.
That's the vagus nerve.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Okay, I remembered something from when I went to the... And so when you look at that, they could find nothing. I'm on no medications. Mm-hmm. I'm healthy. I'm 61 years old. People will say, wow, no medications, nothing. I say, yep, that's me. I went vegan about 11 years ago. Uh-huh. And I think that contributes to it. But I also, that's a big vagus nerve. I also eliminate a lot of negativity in my life. And
because you spent 30 years listening to
that's a good point.
A lot of negativity.
Usually when HR is there is not a good thing. Yeah. Right? Sometimes I try to make it so it is a good thing. So in terms of that, I went home, and that was January 2021. And I had slowly been starting to do what was being called to me. I never really painted. I didn't go to art school. I didn't take art classes, but I had art supplies. Mm-hmm. And I thought, someday I will, right? During the pandemic, I bought these Learn to Paint kits. Yeah. I had about 30 of them. They're all stacked very nicely. Uh-huh. I look at them, look at the instructions, look at the supplies, and I put them back.
So self-taught.
Yeah. So I said when I have time, but there isn't time unless you make the time. Yep. So I started to paint a little bit, and I was so nervous and listening to the doubting thoughts in my head. The
self-doubt.
Yeah, you're not the artistic one, right?
You're not the artistic one. You're not trained.
No, you're not trained, and there's such. I've always loved art, Georgia O'Keeffe, you know.
Georgia. So what does Georgia O'Keeffe art look like?
Beautiful, beautiful flowers. She does intense, and she was from New Mexico. And I know that there's a lot of color and vibrancy. Lady? Yeah.
Okay.
There's mysticism in her too, right? So I love.
Yeah, those flowers look
amazing.
Like they're telling you something.
They are telling you. To me, they're portals. They are also very feminine. There's creation in that. If you look at Frida Kahlo, now talk about mysticism. Frida Kahlo was someone who was injured at 19, and she passed away at 47. She was married to Diego Rivera, so there was a lot of art in her life. But she used her art for her healing.
Oh, Frida.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah, they made a movie on her.
Yes, they did. I love her work because of the vibrancy, and also you can see the pain of miscarriage, of physical injury, etc. So you'll see that there's a lot for me, which is the vibrancy. Another person that I really love is Gustav Klimt, and he's Klimt, and I think he's from Austria. But Gustav Klimt did some beautiful work with color and repeating patterns. You've seen that, The Kiss. That is one of the most famous paintings.
Which one? The
yellow.
The yellow one.
And is it anatomically correct? It's almost like a mixture of the fine detail. And they made a movie of this one called The Woman in Gold. There was, a lawsuit in terms of who actually owned that painting. It was a great movie. We watched it. But if you look at his work, look closely. There's eyes and pyramids and swirls. And for me, I love that.
So how did you find that this is the type of art that inspired you?
This is just over the decades. Another one is
just reading books. And
I really didn't. I would just look. I'm a very visual person, but something would come across. And now with the internet, you have so much. Maxfield Parrish is another one. And what I loved about him is he painted light, and it was really beautiful.
Looks really good.
Yeah, and if you look at Maxfield Parrish, he is more, I don't know, of the old school, old style, right? And so you look at how the light plays on the trees and the people, and I was fascinated by that because in
it's
nature,
almost like the Michelangelo.
I was going back
the Sistine Chapel.
So Michelangelo, I read the book when I was in my teens called The Agony and the Ecstasy, and it talked about Michelangelo's work, how he would dissect cadavers, which back in the day, Roman Catholic, that was a big no-no. He'd light a candle, and he knew after the priest or whomever left where the morgue was, he had only up until so much time before that candle burned down, and then you have to skedaddle because here he is carving up bodies. But when you look at his work and the musculature and the way that the light plays on it and the movement, I think he is the master in terms of that sculpture, painting. Yeah. The Sistine Chapel, the Pietà, that big sculpture that you would see, the David, we saw that when we went to Italy.
Yeah.
And what I remember is he said that he would take a block of marble and he was just releasing what was there. So that really stuck with me.
So he saw David in the marble.
And he pulled it out.
And he was just pulling him out.
So people say, as I've had these artists who I've loved and they've caught my attention, but I never attempted to do that until I was 58. And as I said, I took out my sketchbook, and this is how bad it was, Tony. I'd have my pens.
Do you have some of that artwork up in
oh my gosh,
your website, like your original stuff?
Oh, my originals, yeah. I would just start, and what I would do is I would take a pen and draw a line. I mean, my husband was artistic when we would write love notes when we were dating, because back then we communicated. This is going to date you. Like,
so it's not a text.
No, it was.
It's a little post-it note.
It wasn't the text, the pagers. Now I'm going to go way back. The pagers only had numbers. So we would have codes like 7755. 77 would mean I'm hugging you, or 7755 is a kiss. That's how old school we were. So he would write me notes. I remember he wrote me a note. I'm a very visual person. And I had one note, and I'd say, dude, I'm getting tired reading the one note. can you write more often? So for a 1.5 year courtship, we wrote each other notes.
Yeah.
And when we visited, he was in Oregon and I was here in Seattle. And so one of us would drive down I-5 on Friday and we'd spend the weekend. But we would leave a note for each other before we left to go back on the freeway. But he would write, he'd say my name or I, and have a little crown or a flower with a curly Q. I tried to do that. It was not good. It looked like, kindergarten marks. For his 50th birthday, I'll show you this someday. It was COVID. So yes, I'm a cougar. I'm older than my husband. So I just want you to know I'm very proud of that. So I had 50 of his friends give me memories, their favorite memories of Stan. And I took notes and I hid them all around the house. So it was a perpetual treasure hunt throughout the day. And he would read the stories. Stan is the technical guru in our house. So I made people send it to me and I transcribed it. I wrote, I didn't want to print it and do whatever. And so he found them. But on my envelopes, I'd have a sailboat or an apple or like a pyramid so I numbered them 1 through 50 so he would know. And as I showed this photograph to people, I said, this was June of 2020. And I started to draw in January 2021. They looked at it and they say, very elementary, Irene, or, that's a different style because it was so rudimentary. That was my best, Tony. Yeah. That was the best of my best for his birthday. And I believe that once I just let go of expectations and the self-talk, then it flowed. And so in January, I started to do a little bit more drawing and painting. I talked to my friend Jeff, who's been an artist for 40 plus years. And he would say, and Jeff is very spiritual. He'd say, see what comes through, Irene. He called me a reactive painter. And what I would do, I don't know any of the terminologies. I would lay down my background, I'd look at it, and I'd see what was there, and then I'd bring it forward, just like with Michelangelo. Not that I'm like him. But did I see a cat? Did I see an angel? Did I see trees? What did I see? And so all the work that I do, that's how I do it. I don't sketch and then fill it in. I lay my background down, whether it's watercolor, ink, acrylic. I've worked with pastels. Oil is on the next journey. And I let the background sit, and then I see what's calling, what's talking to me. I just finished a commission. It's going to Texas. It's 36 inches by 48 inches. And it's a person that I know, and he's wonderful. I met him at a conference, also a client of Esther's, a spiritual life coach. And for him, I said, he needs fountain pen ink, not acrylic, not watercolor, because fountain pen ink on a certain type of board, I paint on boards. I started with paper. It's very fluid. And I would just lay down the fountain pen ink and spritz it with water and let gravity do its work. But again, I get the whisper of his is fountain pen ink. Wow. And I'll tell you the things that came forth. The first thing was a scarab, which is I think was really beautiful. And we actually went as part of a group in November to Egypt together. I called him when I was saying, Jeff, my friend, who is the artist, you and another person, the names were given to me to come to Egypt. And all three came. And when we go on sacred travel, you think, okay, it's for you. We're not doing the touristy thing. There is that moment where you are feeling the love and the compassion. And my purpose, our purpose, is to amplify, right? Because there is a ripple. We're all connected one way or the other, whether you believe it or not, 6 degrees of separation, what have you. But if you can put that harmony, peace, love into the world, to me, it's like an echo. It echoes throughout the world, throughout the universe. So for his painting with the fountain pen ink, things kept popping up. It was the most transformative painting I had. I couldn't paint for 4 days because the images kept changing.
Really?
It kept moving. And sometimes I would just sit in front of the painting in my studio and look at it for an hour. And so when it stopped moving, like, like some sort of carousel of images, then I knew what I had to do. And
do you have that one on your website?
If you were to go to my Instagram.
Yep,
at Irene Shimizu Art, you would find, excuse me, that there are, there you go. And I'll show you which one. If you look at, keep going.
Oh, wow.
Keep going. Right there's the scarab that I did. And there's...
and that's from the ink, fountain pen.
Fountain pen ink, right. And if you go back, and you'll see to the right-hand side, the purple down there, right there, this is one of the most crazy pieces of that commission, is that image came through, and it was two people, and it was exactly in the middle of my painting, Tony. Mm-hmm. And that's why I have a tape measure that it's at 24 inches, because horizontally it's 48. But I looked at that, and this collector had a brother, he's part of a triplet, that died in utero. Mm-hmm. And I said, one of those images is him, and the other image was his brother.
Yeah, it looks like a baby and a...
Yeah, and they're opposite each other. Mm-hmm. There was another one, part of this painting, where a wolf showed up. And the wolf energy of protection.
The wolf in there.
Yeah, this is a huge painting. I will do my reveal.
Yeah.
And I haven't done that yet, but if you scroll down a little bit more, right there to the left is the green. That's one of my paintings, part of that painting as well. There's stuff that I don't even know, like that. That was like a underwater fantasy. Like, I've never drawn that before.
Yeah.
But it just came. And dots are very prevalent in mine. Vortex portals are very prevalent in my work. And I'll just go into a zone.
And this is all in the last 3 years. That's impressive.
This painting was completed in January of this year. My father passed away in October, and I started this painting in September. So I had a little break in terms of that. And if you go back and take a look, there's one that I love. That one is also part of the painting right there. And to me, that is the galaxy. And like, I will draw, and sometimes I won't know what it is until I'm done. But you just go into a zone or a mode, and I just do. And I am really happy when I do it. My husband will come and say, hey, it's been 3 hours. Do you want a break? But he knows that if I'm in my mode, just to leave me alone. And then there's another one that's next to it, and this is the wolf right there with the heart. And it started off, the wolf was there. If you look at that one, you can definitely see the outline of a wolf. I just brought it out. There's the eye, the positioning of the wolf's eye, the positioning of the nose. It was all there. I just highlighted it. So that's how I work. And this one right here is a man's face, but instead of a brain, there is a succulent in his brain area. It's like I'm not going to plan that out, Tony. It's like, let's do this. But when I look at my work of what happens, I channel, because I didn't have this before. I didn't have this skill before Egypt. I think everyone has a gift. Everyone is unique. Everyone has something that's very special about them. It took me until I was 58 to say, okay, let's do that. And I'm going to paint. So I'm 100. So I got a lot of painting to do. Yeah. Grandma Moses didn't start till she was, I think, in her 80s. So I'm ahead of her. So I'm going to be doing my painting. And I love to paint.
And how did you get the word out that you were commissioning paint? Big shout out and a huge thank you to Zekin for making this happen. They have an amazing platform. Check out their website, zekin.com, zeacon.com.
People have come to me. If we can go back, if you can go down and a little bit further, I'll show you the other commission that I did. Down, you'll see a little bit more, please. Can you stop right there, Jake? One up. That one is part of this commission, then I'll go on. This was really bizarre to me because I just kept drawing little pieces of it, and it eventually turned into something that I thought was pretty fantastic. It was like something very sci-fi, and I'm not a sci-fi person. I just kept going. But in terms of this commission, when I met this collector, we were at another conference, and I had brought my portfolio with me because I said there might be people who would like to see that. And we talked, and I showed him some of my Instagram, and we became friends. And each painting that I have has a story.
Yeah.
And as I was walking through and talking to him about the story of what I created and what was being spoken to me, that was my message. But someone can look at that and have a different message completely. So I'm just a channel for people. I'm a messenger.
I like how you use the pen and the gold.
I love the pen and the gold.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jake. And if you want to look at my other commission, which is down further, you're going to keep going to UC. It's going to be a while. It'll be a little bit more. And there's my Egypt trip. A little bit more, please. And we're almost there. Keep going. Right there to the left is this. Right there. Yeah. So this was the commission that I did for this person, and she saw one of my originals, and she said, I want that, Irene. I said, okay, I'm not selling my original angels, but I can create something for you. Mm-hmm. So this was also 3 feet by 4 feet. What I saw with her when I met her, and I've known her, as I said, I see so much light in you, but you don't see it. I see so much magnificence in you, but you don't see it. So I painted this, and what I thought was really interesting about this angel, the original painting was called The Sword of Truth. This one is called The Light of Truth. She also went to Egypt with me, and you can see there's an homage to Egypt with the dunes and the mountains down below. But I did this one. It took me about 3 weeks just to do the background because I was using bubbles. I was using Dawn dishwashing liquid, and I did bubbles on the background because she liked that. And I had to have it dry. But when I started, I looked at it, and an angel did show up for her. And so I was able to draw the angel. The headdress for me was so beautiful because there's so many flowers in there. And when I was talking to her, she was the perfect collector, just like this other collector in Texas. They said, here it is, Irene. This is what I want. A couple things. Let me know when it's done. So they know that I'm doing that. For her, there's a butterfly on the back of the shoulder. And I don't know why. She said, I don't need any animals. I don't need any gold. I said, okay. So I did that. And when I told her, I said, hey, I just want to let you know a butterfly showed up. And she got really quiet. She said, butterflies are my thing. I said, no way. She goes, yeah, we were hiking. And the day before we left to go back home to Santa Barbara, she said, or to come back to Seattle, she said, I was surrounded by a whole slew of butterflies. They were flying around me. So 24 hours later, I'm telling her that.
And it just came to you.
It was there. Wow. So I just enhanced it. And then she said, how many wings does this angel have? Because she knew my original one had different wings. I said, 9. She said, oh, good. I said, why? She said, I like multiples of 3. Perfect. Now, my friend Esther, who is my spiritual life coach and a dear, dear friend, I've known Esther for 30 odd years. She looked at my original and she looked at that one. She goes, it needs another wing. I said, no, I like the way that is. She goes, well, look at your other one. There's so many. There's more wings. I said, no, this one is just calling me just to stay put. If I had listened to her and put another wing, it would have been off of what the collector wanted with her multiples of 9.
It might have thrown it off.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so when I do that, I get quiet. I don't listen, no offense, Tony, to podcasts when I'm painting. I'll put one song on and I'll listen to it on repeat for 2-3 hours.
And does that song kind of match the vibe of whoever you're painting for?
It can. Yes, it does. But it matches the vibe of what I'm feeling that day. And then we'll go forth and just do it. So.
Now, how much does something like this? I mean, you don't have to tell me the exact amount for this one.
Okay. That one is $25,000.
Okay.
Yeah. I've done smaller ones for people, but that's the biggest size of 3 feet by 4 feet. And it can take anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks. And the latest one is 7 months because of all the different things, the hospitalization, my father passing away, my trips to Egypt and India. And what I loved about this latest collector is he said, when the divine timing, when everything is aligned, that's great. I said he ended up being my friend. I invited him to come to my art show for the Capitol Hill Art Walk. And I said, your painting's done. Do you want to see it? He said, yeah. So he came all the way from Texas, stayed with us. Beautiful person, beautiful soul. And we did the reveal. Esther was at my house for that point in time, too, just as a stopover somewhere else. And Stan and Esther were so intuitive. They gave me and this collector, Chris, the time just to unveil his painting. We spent an hour talking about the painting for the unveiling of it.
And explaining the story. And
I let him see it. So the first, I let him take a look and see what is there. I sent him about maybe 4 reels during this time frame, just whatever called me to send it to him, because I wanted him to see the big reveal. And he talked about the twins in the middle, the wolf energy.
Yeah.
There were other things, and he just said, wow, right? And there were some things that he saw too. A dragon appeared on there for me. There was another wolf, which was more like a cartoon character, black and white. And then on the other side of the wolf was a pink little pig laughing at the wolf. Where are you going to put that? Yeah. you just pull it out. So when we looked at it, he was able to see all the different things that were coming forth. And so this is the work that I like to do, a lot of line work. That's one of my favorite things to do. If you go down, you can see right there go up with the brush right there. And I like gold.
Yeah.
And so I will just bring it out.
Yeah, the gold looks really good on your paintings.
Pretty. The painting that's there is called I Close My Eyes and Now I Can See. And I almost threw this one away.
Really?
And the reason why I almost threw this away, I couldn't see anything. And my friend Jeff said, just let it be, Irene. Just leave it alone. So I did. And one night, I say good morning and good night to my paintings when I'm working on them. Midnight tends to be a real special time for me. So when I looked at this one painting one night, the angel showed up. And she's one of the lead images on my website when you go on her. But she just showed up full force during that time. What I've realized is I cannot force anything. So in my art studio, I have 10 different paintings on my wall that are in works in progress. And she was a long time coming, but when she came, I think she came out so beautifully.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, what is it that's being called to me to do that day? Now, as a kid, I read a lot of books. I'd read 5 books at a time, so I get kind of bored. So to have 10 different paintings in progress, that's
normal.
Yeah, it's normal for me. And so to get the word out, I did launch my website in September 2022. It's transactional, so people have purchased on the original paintings that I've sold in the commission. It's people who know me, people who've come to my art studio and have said, I feel this energy, or looking at these paintings, they've called me. I have 2 friends that have gone through the infertility, and I don't know if we can get up to it, but there was one really interesting, but if you go up, there is one painting that is showing a heart. And I was doing this painting, keep going. I was doing this painting, probably about 6 more rows, doing this painting. Oh, nope, keep going. One night, one more up. And it will be purple and pink, and it'll have white. So this time I did it with white. A little bit up further, please. Keep going. And she, right there to the right, it's that one. And what I did is, it was about the heart breaking and shattering. And I was going through a tough time. My father had passed. And so I was just drawing, and the heart showed up. But it was all these pieces that were fragmented. But knowing that it could come through, my husband and son knew that I was going through hard times. I just went into a room for a couple hours and started painting.
And the hieroglyphics.
Oh, yeah. I call that my light language. So I can do something like that. And it's like automatic writing. So sometimes I'll look back and I'll say, wow, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
So for this one, it was meaningful because I did get a text from my neighbor saying our IVF worked this time after miscarriages and failed IVF. And to me, that was a testament to her
Mm-hmm.
because her heart had been shattered so many times. And yet here I am painting about my shattered heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Missing my dad. And she also had that by trying to bring life into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, with this is there's different messages that'll come through.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm humbled by what comes through.
Yeah.
Because, and someday I'll send you the photo of my husband's 50th birthday with the 50 envelopes. It was not good.
Yeah.
My little drawings on the envelope, and that was the best of my best. And to see that,
it's a far
within 6 years.
Yeah.
6 months time. And when I first started drawing,
it's like a natural calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I did my angel at the very, very bottom of my Instagram. There was an angel wing painting, and it was small.
Mm-hmm.
This is during the pandemic. It was orange and gold. It was my first post that I did. And I worked really small because I was scared,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I bought small paper.
And now you're working with like 5-foot paintings.
Soon. But there's ones that are, almost as tall as me. And I love that. But when I started, it was just like real small, just do a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept having Spirit say, go bigger. And I kept hearing that, go bigger. Esther was the one that said, create a studio. I'm thinking, I'm not going to create a studio. I have lots of room in my house. I listen, and there's my beautiful studio right there,
mm-hmm.
which is in our backyard, and my dog Choco.
It's like a nice studio.
It is really, it's my place.
Uh-huh.
We built it, and there you can see some of my paintings. Yeah. Those are my original paintings that are on the wall. And
you got the AC there.
Yeah, I got the AC. I do. You're right. It was hot
ready for the summer.
That's right, Seattle summer. And then on the wall, I had some of my other paintings,
mm-hmm.
and this is before I did my remodel. So I remodeled a year later,
mm-hmm.
and I did what's called a French cleat on the wall, so I could hang multiple paintings.
Uh-huh.
Like, how the bathroom mirror is just floating?
Yeah.
That's what the French cleat system is I can move my paintings all around. But, Esther said build the studio so that you could have your own space
mm-hmm.
where the energy can flow and, your angels can talk with you. I live right next to a green belt, which is so beautiful. And
so there's a lot of inspiration.
But you can see the fine line work is very prevalent. It's
mm-hmm.
one of the mainstays that I have.
So with the collector,
yes.
So I know people pass down art, people use it as a store of wealth. Is that their goal as a collector? I mean, how does your art get passed down along with the other art?
In terms of passed down, like within the family?
Yeah, is it within the family, or do they trade it? And like after that person's done enjoying the art.
Yes, it will. The friend who bought the angel one, she says, "Okay, I will bequeath this to my niece."
I see.
So
it's going to get passed down from generation.
And thank you for saying that, because the way that I paint is I varnish. So even before I painted, I did my research, because I'm like that. And we're almost at the bottom. So there is the angel wing painting, and I'll talk about that. So that was my very first painting.
Okay.
And it has,
and that's, you're keeping that for now.
Yeah, I'm keeping that one. When I was on the phone on Zoom with Esther, because this was COVID, right? She said, yeah, that's beautiful. I'd send her photos, because I'd say, I don't know what's happening. I'd start drawing or doing different designs, and
mm-hmm.
she'd look at it and say, yeah, there's something going on, because she was listening, right? And so she said, can you get that? I want to see it. I said, sure. So I went out of the room and I brought it. And I said, here it is. It's like a small postcard. She said, I thought it was bigger from all the paintings that you said.
So that's the size of a postcard?
It's the size of a postcard. She goes, yeah. She said, I thought it was bigger. I said,
it looks big.
Because I went small, right? It's just the part of me that would just go small.
It's also a confidence thing.
It is a confidence thing.
Right.
Yeah. And to know that within a year and a half, I went from 6 inches to painting 1, 2, 3. Now it's 5 paintings that are 3 feet by 4 feet.
Yeah.
And I'm going bigger. I just want you to know I'm going bigger. It's just so freeing. It's just, there's so much room. Like I can just flow with it. I did an embellishment. And I'm sorry to say this, Jake, if you can go all the way to the top, it's my very last.
Jake's like scroll.
Yeah, Jake's scroll king. It's my very last one. And she wanted, to the left right there, it's a print. It's a museum quality print. And I hand embellished it.
Wow,
that's life size. And
that's
she
beautiful.
wanted it. Thank you. She wanted that. And you can see as it moves that there's movement to it, right? I want something that will show that. But she said, in terms of who gets it, she goes, I got 3 kids. I have to figure out who's going to get it. And these are limited edition. So each one is very unique.
So what would that go for?
That one's $1,000.
$1,000.
Yeah. It's museum quality paper. I use German Hanamule paper because I want the best of the best.
So how is that $1,000 and the other one was $25?
The other one is an original. So when I do the original, the one that you saw, it's the cradling is about as deep as this, and it's on wood. And the original is the original. The print is the print, right? Okay. But the original, it's different, and you will see it. There's energy that's infused. There's energy that's infused to all of them. But the original for that one was just for that person.
I see.
So, or the commission. I do have that original painting at home. That one's $15,000. Okay. But when I do a commission,
so this is a
print.
A print of it. Okay.
It's a print of it, right?
Yeah.
But when I do a commission, I take the time. I listen to that person. We talk. We work together, and I see what comes through. And there were times when it was really cold in December and January. I brought that latest commission into my house, into my guest room. And I'd paint on it, and we have a bed in the guest room. And I would just plop, and I'd sleep for 2 hours after painting because there was so much energy flowing through. And my husband's great. He would just let me do what I do, right?
Yeah.
And know that if I was in a zone, is just to leave her alone.
Yeah. So do you leave him alone when he's in a zone?
When he's in a zone, I do leave him alone. We've been married 25 years. We know each other's zones. So he's been the biggest proponent. Say Esther and Stan, my friend Jeff, have been the biggest proponents of just keep doing it. I mean, I may not know or understand what's happening, but I know what feels right when I'm on point. And people have said, what does that feel like, Irene, when you know you're on point? I said, when you hear a beautiful piece of music, it brings you to tears, or you see something. That's what it's like. It's like a whoosh. It's like a wave. And I am brought to tears. I have painted crying because it's from a position of gratitude and just that knowing. It's like nothing I've ever felt before. Not even the shoes or the chocolate would do that for me. This is just something.
See, that's, I help folks with retirement planning, and I feel like what you ended up doing in your retirement is sort of like a second stint or third stint.
My second act, yeah.
Second act, but it came to you.
It came to me.
It wasn't something where you struggled to figure out what am I going to do next after this corporate life.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, what advice would you give other folks that are nearing that time of what am I going to do next? Because they've toiled away in corporate America for as long as you have.
I didn't want to be the person that retired and then that was it. Right. I have found joy in the 33 years. So don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I've got some I should write a book. I've got some great stories to tell. Oh, there will. And it's the people that have brought me joy, the connections with every company. I've kept in touch with a handful of people that were just aligned, right? And for the advice to give to people is listen, is the way my art is if I wake up and there's something, whether it's days or weeks, and it's an idea, it'll rumble around my head like a marble circling the drain. And until I get that piece out, then it'll be restless within me. So listen to your higher self, spirit, whatever, universe, God, that's telling you if you want to start baking, bake. If you want to start a shelter for homeless kids, do that. If you want to be an author, do that.
Yeah.
If you want to, learn 5 languages and be a translator, do that.
But they have to start.
You have to start.
Right, because you started on a postcard.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
And look at that.
Yeah. I can be, I don't know what the word is. It's not obsessive, but I can be very persistent and diligent.
Mm.
So I did watercolor. A lot of the things you're seeing on watercolor, that one right there is actually, the original is an acrylic. I did my first acrylic, just trying it,
Mm.
and it was horrible. I did 3 12 by 12 inch. When I was done, it looked like kindergarten.
Mm.
One of them looked like a charcuterie board, with salami and cheese and everything. I said, oh my God. And so I put the acrylic away for about 4 or 5 months. Excuse me. I did some research and I realized acrylic's a different medium than watercolor. Sure. So I found the different things to help the acrylic move on the board. So I've gone from paper and now I'm on board.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 different kind of boards. Actually more than 3, but 3 that I use. Some of the boards are rougher texture, so it's like roller skating in Green Lake. There's a medium texture that's like roller skating inside. I'm gonna date myself like a Skate King, right? Back in the day. And then there's some with my recent commission that's like ice skating. You put your medium down and it just like goes. There's no control. So with acrylic, after I found out it's different. Master your materials, my friend Jeff would always say. So I would play. And then after that, I think it was 13 or 16 in a series of it's called Love and Bloom. Mm-hmm. So all those flowers that you see, that was all acrylic. And that was my second act of dealing with acrylic. And then after that, I wasn't scared of it anymore because the 3 that I did that looked horrible was talking to my doubts of being that grade school kid when the art teacher said, no, this is not for you.
Wow. So
I pushed that aside and I'll just go into sessions. And I did all those 13 paintings in, I want to say 3 or 4 months time. Mm-hmm. In 2022, I did 91 paintings in 365 days.
Wow.
So I have a reel that will show you just real quick of that. Some of them were small and then the last ones were big. 3 of them 3 feet by 4 feet.
So do you ever think you wish you would have started earlier?
No. And here's the reason why is the timing wasn't right. Mm-hmm. The circumstances, nothing is ever wasted. So everything that I have, I've worked with people that say, wow, Irene, for an artist, you're really organized and you present well, you articulate. And I said, well, that's from my previous life, right? Mm-hmm. I had to do presentations and whatnot. So it wasn't right. I think I would have been distracted. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you a funny story about? Yeah. So after I had my 3 months of sleeping and then my one visit to the ER in January 2021, I said, okay, now it's time to go back to work. Let's find a job, but find a different one. My husband said, do what you want. So I was referred by a friend who has her own HR firm, consulting firm. She referred me to another firm, met the CEO and the COO. And within a period of like 7 days, we met and they were ready to offer me a job. Mm-hmm. And they were great. And they said, oh, with your background in tech and all that, we work remote. We've got an AI company on Bainbridge Island. You'd be perfect. When can you start? So the night before, again, at 2 a.m., I get on Facebook. There's an image of a bristlecone pine tree. Mm-hmm. And I love plants and flowers. Never heard of it. This is like a 5,000-year-old tree. And I looked at it and I thought, that's one of my paintings. So I text Esther. I said, are you awake? She said, yes, it's 2 a.m. We talked for an hour. So we're talking about the bristlecone pine tree. We Google it.
That you saw on Facebook and somebody's post.
Yeah, it just came in a feed, they have the general feed. It wasn't even from someone. It was a general feed. And then I Googled the bristlecone pine tree and there was a smaller one. And when I zoomed in, there was a star. The branches were crisscrossed and there was like a star right in the middle, like, a sunspot. I had made a card for a friend and I had drawn that tree.
Wow.
That tree. And when I'm talking to Esther, she said, you know what that means, right? I said, yeah, I got to keep the card. She goes, no, silly. You painted the card for your friend. Send it to her. She said, how do you feel, Irene? You're going to accept this job the next day. They're going to talk about start date, salary. I said, I get really sad. I said, I know me when I go into a new job, I just go full force, right? I want to give 110%. I said, I'll be painting on, vacations. I'll be painting not really on weekends because I would still work through the weekends. My choice. No one made me do that. And she said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't want to go back to HR. I want to do art full time because I had been painting for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And she said, okay. So I called. So I had a call with the COO and the CEO. And they're nice, wonderful women. I love that. And I said, well, I wanted to tell you I'm not taking the job. And they said, like, is it another company? Do we need to look at our offer? I said, no, it's not. And I said, thank you. You guys are just so amazing. And they said, well, can we ask you what you're going to do? And I said, sure. I said, I'm going to paint. And they said, can we see your art?
Can we see your art?
I said, sure. And the video that you
Did it
saw.
say, can we buy your art?
Yeah.
After that?
they were just so amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just within 7 days, I wanted to work for them. They were so wonderful. And then I said, sure. And so I turned the Zoom around, and my studio's not been built. So this is in my upstairs. So I'm pulling out different paintings. And the painting where you saw my studio on the wall, those are my original ones. And I think I had painted, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 of them within like a 2-3 month period. And I showed them that, and they were just quiet. And they said, wow, those are beautiful. How long have you been painting, Irene? I said 2 months. So that was painting in January, and that was March. And the CEO said, Irene, you have to keep painting. She said, I have a house at Carmel by the sea. And she said, I can see your art in any of those galleries. I said, wow, thank you. And I said, did you go to school? No. Did you get lessons? No. And they said, you have to keep painting. And they said, they were so kind. They said, if you ever get tired or bored and you want to do HR with your eyes closed, come and call us.
Yeah.
But that was such a big weight off my back, from going to pounding it in corporate and doing that, to saying, I'm giving myself permission to create. But my mission is to take the beauty, the healing, the harmony that I infuse in my artwork and to spread it around the world.
Yeah.
So 55 and 85 are my magic numbers. When I see those numbers, magical things happen, or messages. So I went with 80. I went with 55. I should change it to 85. But my goal is to have 55 original paintings around the globe that work as activation spots. So
when you say activation spots, what do you mean?
When people see my paintings, I would like to invite you to my studio sometime, both of you, so you can see. They feel the energy in the painting so that it activates and helps them to do their best, to have the belief that they're able to do what they want to do, to have the hope, the courage, the strength to do that. That one painting that I showed you with the angels, that one was called The Sword of Truth. The original was the Light of Truth. Excuse me, that one's the Light of Truth. The angel in my original is holding that sword. In the commission one, there's a gap. And I said, she sees it. You can see her line of sight. She's contemplating it. Now it's time for you to embrace your divine magnificence.
Wow.
And she said, the collector said, Irene, thank you, because this is what's been. I said, I've seen it. I can tell you all I want, right? But that's it. If you look at my website and you open it up, there is one mantra that I have, and it's ireneshimizu.com. And it was very purposeful when we designed this website. And I manifest art, to help me remember my divine magnificent, and love is the answer.
It's a very targeted message.
It is. And that message is not just for me, it's for everyone. So what I can do is, here's my gift and my purpose is to create the art that helps people remember who they are.
Wow.
So that's it. And how can I do a painting with a shattered heart, and my neighbor texts me and says, we have a wonderful news with our IVF.
So you're connected to everybody you paint.
Yeah.
And you feel the energy.
I do. And people will say that there's a lot of, and if you scroll down, you can see there's my different parts that I have here in the gallery. I have Angels and Divine Feminine. I have my Celestial Natures and Creatures. Suminagashi, which is a Japanese dropping ink on water. And I just signed with a company called Studio Set.
Oh, wow.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you. They're doing custom acoustic panels. My Suminagashi they want to use on custom hand-knotted rugs made in Nepal. And and they're working with architects and also, you know, the big companies like the Amazon, the Googles, hospitality and hospitals. And I'm glad that my art will be in public places, which I want them to be, to continue with energy.
And your art's also on Victoria's fabrics.
We're working on that. That's
working on, okay.
So this is, and if you go back to Celestial Nature and Creatures, this is what they picked up with the red, and they will do this on acoustic panels.
Yeah, I really like that one.
That one?
The red one?
Yeah. The one's called Beautiful, or Divine Magnificence. The red is very striking. So these are the ones that the studio set company picked up to put on their website so that people can use them. And that makes me happy to know that there's things that have my work and my energy that can help other people with their work, their energy.
Yeah. That's awesome. So when's the next gallery?
I know.
I missed the first one.
I know. Well, I only gave you like 4 days.
Yeah.
I gave you 4 days notice. I'll give you better notice. And I will sign you up for my newsletter.
Yeah.
I think I sent the newsletter to you and Jake, but I want to sign you up.
Yeah, just sign, sign me up.
Thank you. Sign me up.
Yeah.
People have said, when is your next exhibit? So having just come out of the hospital in March and then convalescing in April, and now I really haven't reached out, but now it's time because I would say the last 2 weeks, I felt the nudge again. Yeah.
Re-energized.
Yeah.
So how do people find you?
My website is ireneshimizu.com. My Instagram is Irene Shimizu Art. And on any of those places, you know, you can connect with me, direct message me, call me, email me.
And you're still taking commissions?
I am taking commissions. I have to admit, I get a little nervous each time there's a commission. Yeah. And then once I just breathe and it just comes through. And those last 2 commissions have told me, you're on point, Irene. Just move yourself out of the way and listen to what's being given to you so that you can give it to your collector so that they can receive their messages and their blessings. Yeah.
I think you said a very key thing. And I think people have to remind themselves, even myself included, is to get out of our own way.
Get out of our own way. Oh my gosh.
It's just have the intention and then get out of the way.
There is a painting, my first self-portrait on my Instagram, and it's called, actually, if you go to, going back to the website and you go to Divine Feminine, if you go to the gallery, you can see to the left, Angels and Divine Feminine. There is one painting down, right there to the left. It's called Serene Irene. I drew this. I painted this. And I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, that's a self-portrait because that's like me. And there's 2 images there. The first one came out very strongly, and that's an angelic. And there's stars on her garment. It's very amorphous. But before I put the stars in there, it was green. And she was wearing a green dress. And the one in the bottom is little Irene. And to get out of the way were those little voices from the past that were imprinted on you from way back when, that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. And
like the teachers telling you.
Parents, you know, playmates, what have you, all the things that you would internalize. So what was really important to me is little Irene there, her wings are more closed, but if you look at big Irene, she's expanded. Her wings are open. She's ready to fly. And on the website at the bottom where you look at About Me, this is really interesting because she was wearing a green dress. And when I went to Santa Fe and you look at my story, there's some of my photos, that green dress right there in front of my art studio, I had painted that painting with me in a green dress. Yeah. And a month later, I went to Santa Fe and that green dress was there.
And you just bought it? I bought it.
And that's important to me on my website is I had painted that green dress. I don't own a green dress, but there she was. And I bought it.
Do you find that when people like take a pause, the universe is telling them something?
Always. The universe is always listening.
Yeah.
Always. We can sit down for days and I can tell you stories.
Yeah. Maybe the next the next show, right?
Yeah.
You know?
There's
because I want to dive into that next time.
I think there is, we'll talk, there's more to that, and I have a couple of thoughts for you, but I have not always been this open. I have been such a closed, uptight.
Well, culture, the Filipino culture is such that, yes, you're giving, but you're also very shy, quiet, timid.
Yeah.
You know.
So you know Filipinos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And growing up Catholic, I mean, like.
Oh, yeah. So you're born guilty.
And a woman. So all that stuff. So I have gotten out of my way later in life. And I had been evolving through that. But to fully embrace that, you know, to tell my husband I'm going from an executive to being a full-time artist, I'm like, but I knew what was there. The universe will always make a way.
Yeah.
Always, always. I had a friend that said, "You're selling commissions like that and people are buying them."
Yeah.
He said, "I have artist friends who've done this for decades and never have."
Yeah, they don't do this. Yeah.
It's like, you know, I don't know. I always tell people, you know, there's a skit on SNL with Pete Davidson and his name is Chad. And Chad would just say, "Okay, you know, okay, Chad, you know, the devil comes in, you know, we need you to go down in Hades and do it." Okay. So for me, that has been my art journey. I'll get that nudge or that whisper. Okay, today you're going to do this. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I want you to go and do this instead of buying 20 by 30. I want you to buy 36 by 48 inch. Okay. So that's how I don't know any better because I'm being led.
But that's how you speed up the growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you just get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, people said 91 paintings and 365. I don't know any better. I just go with the flow.
Because you don't let the standards stop you.
No.
Or whatever preconceptions there are of what a painter artist should be.
Yeah. And that's what it is. And I've been led, right? Like so many synchronicities. I wanted to say, okay, art gallery. Do I do the art gallery world? What's that world like versus my own? I'm still up in the air in terms of that. But I had a friend, you know, who knows someone, Victoria knows Vivian, who knows, whatever, all of that. And she was on the board of the Seattle Art Museum. Oh, wow. So we had coffee. And then she said, "Oh, let me introduce you to the art gallery director. We just crossed the street." Okay. There we go. So we go there and he's with someone. And I give him my business card. You know, we'll talk later. Thank you. You know, the board member said thanks. And so being the chicken that I am, it took me 2 weeks to make the call. But in the 2 weeks, I went there and I looked to see what they have in the gallery, you know, downstairs where people can rent or buy art. These are local artists. Okay, great. And then I went on the website and I think he started to follow me first. So then I followed him back and I looked at what he was doing. He was visiting artists in their studios. So when I finally called, see, again, timing, because if I'd called him a week ago instead of 2 weeks later, I wouldn't have known that he visited artist galleries. So I said, "Would you like to," you know, dialed a little shaky, "Would you like to come see my art gallery?" He said, "Yeah." So he came early. We had an hour. He stayed for more than an hour. And it was so funny because here is the director of the art gallery looking at stuff, looking and talking about varnish. And I said, "Oh, going back to that, I varnish everything. I paint. I do an isolation coat, 1 or 2, and then I do 2 or 3 coats or even 4 of varnish every single inch, even on the back, because these are heirlooms. I do want them to be around, like, you know,
passed down.
Yeah. Generation. And to me, it's a sacred piece that I'm working on. So, you know, our gallery director's looking at it, asking about that, just very kind and quiet, but you could just tell. And he, along with another person who interviewed me, who was an artist, she's very well known on social media, but they both said, "If we put your paintings in a room with other paintings, I can pick your paintings out. You have voice. You've created your voice. You've established your voice. And sometimes that takes time for people, but you came out, it's there."
Yeah.
And that conversation about having my voice, the first time a professional artist said that, I mean, several of them have said that. It's just a knowing, it's just a doing, it's just a expressing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, you guys.
This was awesome. And
but I am going to extend that invitation for you to come. I'd be happy for you to see it. And,
okay.
And the garden's beautiful this time of year.
Yeah, we can bring Jake.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, Jake is like compadre. Yeah. Well, thank you guys very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.